CM Sportsnet presents Sports Talk at Island Green.
Greetings and welcome to episode 2 of Sports Talk at the Island Green right here on Carroll Media Center. I'm your host, Avery Newport. Thank you so much for joining us for the second episode of this brand new show. We're going to talk McDaniel athletics, talk some Maryland sports, talk some local Carroll County sports, give you everything you need to know about the sports scene right here in Westminster. Joined once again for the second week in a row by the head coach of the McDaniel Green Terror football program, Mr. Skylar Fultz. Skylar, thanks for being back.
Anytime, Avery. Thanks for having me.
So this is your second game that you've coached for your alma mater. You were on the road this past weekend against Rowan up in Glassboro, New Jersey, which was a loss for you guys. 30-20 was the final score on the road, your first road game as the head coach of the Green Terror. And look, it was a tough one to start out. You guys were down big early, but you came back, you fought back late in the second half to make it a close game, only losing by 10 on the road. Just real quickly here, give me some of your takeaways from the loss this past weekend.
The guys, we started off a little slow. I think we kind of had a little bit of a hangover from the bus ride and then also the emotions from last week's game. And then it's hard to overcome early mistakes. You nail it, though. We were extremely proud of the guys' fight and the effort. I challenged them at halftime and basically said, here's the difference between the past and the new, right? Old times, old ways, you kind of cave and let the game get away from you. I challenged them and said, let's go out in the second half and really respond to it, right? That's the word we keep preaching to the guys is you can't always control everything, control what you can, but ultimately the one thing you can do is always respond the best you possibly are able to. And they really came out in the second half and fought. And again, if we come away with that 2-point conversion there, it's a one-score game in the fourth quarter, and you never know what happens. You don't believe in moral victories, but the one thing we are proud of is their ability just to fight the entire game and overcome what they were able to.
Yeah, exactly. Because, again, just from the first half, you guys were down early, but it did not look ever like 1 point that you gave up at all throughout the game. You were able to make it close in the second half, but just couldn't quite finish it off. And that was a little bit different from the opener against Catholic, where you were able to make those plays down the stretch. These kinds of things are going to happen, though, with a young team. First year with the team, you're still trying to feel things out a little bit. But I think there's a lot of things to build off of. Even though you lost the game on the road, there were a lot of positives, I think, to take away from it. Most notably, Eric Winrus, 251 passing yards on the road, 3 touchdowns for him. He looked good in certain moments, but you got to talk about the turnovers. 3 interceptions as well. That's a lot of, what you get with Eric. You get a lot of the big plays and the big yardage, but sometimes there are mistakes thrown in there as well.
And when you look at the interceptions, the one's on me. It was a bad play call. One of the things we had practiced all week, it wasn't the right look to do it. And I told him that immediately afterwards, right? That's on me. That's not on anyone else. The other one, he gets hit as he's throwing. The guy's going to be open, so that's kind of a fluke thing. And then you look at just kind of trying to work through a few things. And again, it comes through with developing and learning the system and going through, but you can see when it's there, when he has time, when he's able to go through what he's supposed to, there's plays to be made on the field for him. So again, really excited because he did take that step forward from last week to this week. And now it's about us trying to piece everything together, the run game with the pass game, because that did kind of leave us out to dry there in the second half. We knew we weren't going to run the football, so it's about what can we do in the pass game, and we were able to make some plays, but you'd like a little bit more balance on that side.
Right, and despite the turnovers, it really didn't even hurt you all that much because you got those possessions back with 3 interceptions from the defense. The defense was phenomenal, especially in the second half, getting the ball back for the offense.
Defense just had to calm down early on, figuring out what Rowan's trying to do on offense. We got caught out of place. And again, we have some young guys playing at some spots. Often their alignments a little bit. Again, technique, you're going to make mistakes. The effort was there. It's just some of the things that they had to get cleaned up today in film, but then they settled down and they started playing football. Like you said, they matched turnover, but we kept putting the defense on the offensive side in a bad situation. You'd like to be able to capitalize on a couple of them to even the game out a little bit more.
So what were the most positive things that you took away from this past game? Obviously it was a loss, but you fought back in the second half. The defense made some timely plays as well. Eric looked good throwing the ball. What do you think the best thing you saw from this team was this past weekend?
You kind of nailed it when you said the word fight, right? And that was one of the things when you're dealing with a football program that didn't win a game last year, right? And then to win the opener in such a close fashion, you want to say, all right, was that a fluke or are we able to fight and overcome adversity? The guys really did that. They fought through. And the second part is I think it's belief. The guys believed that they had a chance to win that football game. They believed in each other. There was no, again, with us giving turnovers back and forth, there was no fighting intermongst the program, right? The defense was going to continue to do their job. Just understand the offense is going to make the play. We just have to fight through the game a little bit. So you nailed it when you said fight, and then I'd add in belief. The guys, they kept charging at it because they thought no matter what, we were going to have a chance to win the game in the fourth.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it never looked like at any point the guys were giving up. They fought back towards the end and just couldn't quite put the nail in the coffin, and they were able to lose. But again, you also have to consider the fact too that last year, you mentioned it, the team was winless and they played this very same Rowan team at home and lost big. This year, they kept it close. They were able to fight through those problems and make it a close game at the very end. And you got to really, I really admire that effort, that even though, you know, the last couple times you've lost to the same team, you really put up a tremendous effort in this game. And I think there's a lot to build off of. Even though you lost the game, there's still a lot of positive things that you can take away from a loss.
And that's what we want to preach to guys, is that positive attitude at all times, right? You're never perfect. Even if you won a game 60-0, you did something wrong at some point. So no matter what, you want to have that positive attitude and take what you can and learn from what is bad. I told the guys after the game, I don't believe in moral victories, right? I also don't believe in losses. You have wins and you have lessons. It's up to you to turn it into a lesson. And that was what we were talking to them today about at our team meeting when we went to watch back the film, is where can we learn from our mistakes? Right? They're going to make some plays, stuff that's out of your control, but where could we have aligned a little better? Where could we have communicated a little bit better or executed a little bit more? Those are the spots where we want to be able to take that next step from week 2 going into week 3.
So we saw mostly Eric Grinwis as the quarterback in this past weekend game against Rowan. We did see some Angel Granado here and there, but mostly on running plays. He was sacked as well when he was able to get into the game. Are we going to see mostly Eric moving forward, or are we going to try and maybe see a little bit more of Angel coming in for some versatility on the ground game?
I mean, it's no different than the conversation we had last week, right? It's what is it going to take for us to win each game? Where can we use guys to utilize different people in different aspects, right? As Angel continues to develop and grow as a passer, especially within our offense, hoping to like him see to take the next step. And then obviously when Eric had time, Eric was able to make a bunch of plays.
Sure.
So it's no different. It's a week to week who's going to allow us to put ourselves in different positions. It doesn't matter if that's quarterback, offensive line, or wide out running back, right? We're always going to utilize who we can. That's going to help us win each game.
And we saw the running game take a little bit of a step back this week, but I think you can mostly attribute that to game script. You know, you guys got down early and you couldn't rely on the run anymore. You had to start throwing the ball to get back in the game. And it worked out. You got back in the game in the second half, and you made the plays to make it a close game towards the end. Are we going to see more of an emphasis on the run this upcoming weekend against William Patterson?
The emphasis is always there. Yeah. Like when you go back and watch the film, it was a lot of 6 inches this way, 6 inches that way, right? If we're 6 inches tighter on our combo on the offensive line, the hole goes from being a 1 yard gain hole to a 5 yard gain. And that gives you a little bit more confidence to continue to run the football. You don't want to fall behind big and have to rely on one side. I would have liked a little bit more balance. And that's what we talked to the guys about today is we're close. Right? A lot of those 2 yard, 3 yard, 1 yard gains are close to being 5 and 6, and that gives you a little bit more balance. It keeps you from being in 2nd and 9s. Now you're in 2nd and 5s, and it keeps you away from the 3rd and 9s. It gets you to third and short. Right. So hopefully we can continue to develop and grow with that, and just let the guys understand you don't have to do everything every play. Yeah. Right? Trust that the guy next to you, like if you're the left tackle and I'm the left guard, I got to trust you're going to do your job. I can't do yours too.
Being pretty sized, undersized left tackle. If I was not sure you want me on the blind side,
but that's where we have to continue to grow and develop and learn and trust within the system. And the guys are starting to gel together a little bit. And there are times you see it. You just want to see it a little bit more consistently.
Right. And again, it's a long season. This is only the 2nd game of the year. You have plenty of time to put things together. But I think that's a really great mindset to have as a coach and to try and preach to your players is that you really are this close. You're just a couple of different things away, a couple little things here and there from making a 2 yard gain into a 10 yard gain and another first down. Like you're that close. You just got to put a little bit more effort in or do something different here and there to make those plays, and it will happen.
I mean, Al Pacino was right in Any Given Sunday, right? It is a game of inches.
Classic football movie.
And it's funny, and it's one of those where it really, really is true. Because when you look at it, like, for example, we ran the halfback toss that Micajah Cobbs threw, right? It's 6 inches. That's a huge play. Gets us down to the 9-yard line, right? A really, really close kind of situation. But it's funny because you don't want to always give those guys those little sayings, but when they're true, it's true.
Yeah, and sometimes it helps. I mean, sometimes that really does, like, motivate guys to want to, try and push a little harder next time, or, anyway, I think that's there are a lot of positives to build off of, even in a loss. You can take a look at the film and see the little things you got to do differently next time. But you'll have those opportunities at home for your next game this upcoming weekend against William Patterson. Another team that you guys played last year. You lost on the road in New Jersey against the Pioneers, but they're here in your house this weekend on the Hill. What are you expecting from them this weekend?
They're a hard effort athletic team,
yeah.
right? You go through the first couple of games. You look at the FDU game. You look at their game against Dickinson, another conference opponent. No matter what the score is, they're giving effort, and they have extreme athleticism, right? So we have to match that effort always, and then we have to always make sure we're protecting the football. Because if you go back to last year's game, it's a different ball game if the turnovers go the other way.
Yep.
So that has to be the focus, is always match or exceed the effort, but we have to make sure we protect the football and not give the opposing team that's coming into our place extra possessions.
Yeah, and again, you can definitely see that when you guys were at home for the season opener, at home against Catholic, under the lights, the atmosphere was there, the guys were fired up. I really do think there is something tangible to the home field advantage that you have here. And I'm hoping that'll translate this weekend, too.
That's always true. And that's one of the things I told the guys about when you go away is you can't let your atmosphere dictate how you are, right? You have to be the one. It's the old, are you the thermostat or are you the thermometer, right? Like, you don't want to play football as the thermostat where you're going off of what the actual feeling is.
Yeah.
You want to be the one that sets the temperature of the game. And, again, at being at home, it should always be that extremely high situation.
Right.
We have to continue to grow and develop to where we're always going to play at that high level.
Yeah. I like those analogies, man. It's always important for a coach to have good analogies to make those connections. But from an offensive standpoint, you want to establish the run, of course, early on, and you want to limit the mistakes. What else are you looking to do to attack this Pioneer defense?
I mean, you look at the one thing I was happy about that we took a step forward is creating the explosive plays, right? It's hard to win a football game 4 or 5 yards at a time. You want to try to get some chunk plays, and we took a step forward this past week. So it's about, can we continue to grow in that area? Because when you are able to get some explosive plays, then it helps the run game. They have to play a little softer in certain situations. So I was happy with that part, but now can we mash it all together and be consistent with it?
Yeah. Another thing that I noticed, even in the loss on the road against Rowan, was that you converted both of your chances in the red zone, which is another, great positive sign that this team is headed in the right direction. That when you get close to the goal line, you capitalize, and you don't settle for field goals either. You make the most of those close, short yardage opportunities, and that's another positive thing that I've seen so far from the first couple of games you guys have played, is that red zone efficiency has really been an emphasis, and you guys have capitalized when you've gotten those close scoring opportunities.
Well, after last week, we were kind of disappointed about the way we acted when we got closer. So that really was a point of emphasis for us this past week at practice, is understanding that as the field gets shorter, your attention to detail has to grow a little bit.
Yeah.
So we really made sure we emphasized that. And the guys did a great job. They locked in as soon as we crossed the 25. It was like, it's go time. We have to really key in and make sure we execute at a higher level.
Yeah. What are you expecting to see from this William Patterson defense? We talked a little bit about what they can provide on the other side of the ball, but how about for you guys? How do you want to attack? What do you think the game plan is there?
They have really good size and athleticism, so we have to make sure we're smart with running the football, make sure we have equal numbers and not let them really commit extra to the run. And if they do, we have to execute throwing the football, right? Football always comes down to a few simple things, and one of the first ones is numbers. Okay. If they're going to put 8 and 9 there, stop the run, you have to be able to throw the ball to lighten it up a little bit. Yeah. So we want to make sure we stay balanced and kind of locked into our little keys and techniques that we're really going to preach to the guys this week.
Yeah. I think another thing, too, of course, this is obvious, but getting off to a fast start is really important, because if you get behind early, you've got to alter the game plan a little bit, and you've got to throw a little more than you wanted to. You can't really establish the run at later points in the game. So getting off to a hot start quickly, I think, is really going to be key for this weekend as well.
I mean, there's 2 goals you want to have, right? You want to start the game well, and you want to start the second half well. If you can do those two things, you're always going to be in a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter. So you look back to this past week against Rowan, we did not start the game well. But the second half, we started the second half well on both sides, doing some good things. Defense dug their heels in. It's like, now can we mash those two together? Because the week before, we were doing some really, really good things to start the game.
Right.
And then finally, the second half, we settled down on offense. It's like, can we put it all together? That's really the goal.
I think there's a really great chance to do that this weekend against William Patterson. This is a team that last year only won 2 games in the regular season. Of course, a lot can change from last year to this year, and this is a different William Patterson team that you're going to be playing. But there are a lot of returners. There are a lot of players that had experience in the game against you guys last year when you traveled up to New Jersey. But again, I think this is a really winnable game, and I think if you just correct a couple of those little mistakes here and there, limit the turnovers, you can establish the run early, get ahead early as well, the script is totally going to be flipped for this week.
Yeah, you nailed it on the head. We're always going to believe that we can win every single game we go into, but it's all about what can we control to win that game, right? Don't let the opponent dictate you as much.
Exactly. Well, I'm really excited to see how these little tweaks and changes affect this week because, again, this is only your 3rd game coming up as head coach. It's still very early in the season, and there are still a lot of things that you're just figuring out about your own team. Even though you've coached them for 2 games at this point, there's still a lot of things that you are trying to figure out about what your strengths are and how you can do some different things. And you got plenty of time here to really try and work out those kinks.
Yeah, I mean, every practice is a growth practice for me as much as it is the players, right? The guys that are seniors, I'm trying to catch up on 3 years of relationship building that I wasn't able to do. So I'm learning something new about each one of the guys every single day. How do they react when things are going well? How do they react when things aren't going well? What button do I need to push for you to play at a higher level, right? Some guys deal with you really have to get after them a little bit, really challenge them to the next level. Other players, you really have to sit them down and show them what your expectations are and what you want from them. So again, every single day of practice, I'm learning much about them as much as they're learning about the game plan each week.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that too, just in watching your interactions with the team. Like, you definitely have a good sense and a good vibe of how each guy, works with each other and works with the unit that they're a part of. And that's a great sign to me moving forward, that you've got the cohesion and you've got the pieces to put it together. And now it's just getting the game experience, getting a couple more games under your belt and feeling those little things out a little bit more. And eventually those wins will start coming along. Yeah,
it's all those things. Like you were talking about Eric earlier, it's him and I learning each other about how I call a game, right? What I'm looking for, why I call a certain thing in certain situation. And those are just the developments that you don't have, but you really have to focus and spend time on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, exactly. There's plenty of time to work out those things and to learn a little bit more about each guy and work through those problems. And really, they're not even problems. They're just little things here and there.
It's the growth of a football team.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It doesn't matter whether you're talking about the smallest high school in the state of Maryland or if you're talking about Alabama football, right? Anytime a new coach comes in, it's all a part of the process of the growth and development that you're trying to do. So and each team's different, each player's different, each week's going to be different. But you always have to continue to focus on those things every single day.
Exactly. There's always a learning curve, especially when you're a first-year head coach. Inheriting your alma mater, there's, of course, a lot of attention, a lot of eyes on your program as well. Like, these things take time. It's not going to happen overnight. And just from what I've seen from you guys so far in the first couple of games, you've shown a lot of resiliency. You've been able to fight hard all the way through the game. And there are a lot of positive things to take away from the first 2 weeks. And I think you really got a great chance to apply a lot of those things at home coming up against William Patterson.
That's the goal. To take each thing you learn from each week and take the next step forward. We haven't played our best football yet, right? And the question is when are we going to do it, and can we sustain it? That's the challenge I put to the players and the coaches the last couple of days, and that's what we're really going to try to work towards every single day.
Yep. You said it in the win against Catholic. There's a new standard here for McDaniel football, and really excited to see where you take this where you take this program this year and moving forward into the future. Just looking at this game upcoming, and then for the rest of the year, a lot of positive signs to take away from the first 2 weeks.
Yep, you always find the positives, and the things that you would consider negative, you find a way to learn from them and attack them so they turn into positives for yourself each week.
Yeah. Skylar Fultz, head coach of the Green Terror football program, McDaniel plays Rowan on Saturday at 1 o'clock. You can tune into that game on the Centennial Conference Digital Network, where yours truly will be the play-by-play announcer. Shameless plug. But we'll be right back. We'll come back here after a short break and talk with the associate head coach of South Carroll High School, Chris Gavin. You're watching Sports Talk at the Island Green. We'll be back after this.
Welcome to Island Green, Westminster. The Pub and Grill offers a variety of food in a family-friendly atmosphere. Live music, private suites, miniature golf. Learn more at islandgreenwestminster.com. Island Green, Westminster.
Skill, dedication, leadership. Just a few of the things it takes to be named CM Sportsnet's Athlete of the Week. Hi, I'm Pat Stetzer. Each week, CM Sportsnet recognizes an outstanding player for their contribution to their sport. Meet some of Carroll County student athletes and join us as we celebrate their performance, impact, and outstanding accomplishments.
CM Sportsnet Athlete of the Week is brought to you by Barnes Bollinger Insurance and by Raising Cane's.
You can help shape the future. Attend the Kiwanis Youth Leadership Forum. Join us on October 1st at 6:30 p.m. in the Exploration Commons at the Westminster branch of the Carroll County Public Library for a community forum on youth leadership education. Learn from experienced professionals about the essential leadership skills young people need to succeed, including problem solving, communication, and teamwork. Investing in youth leadership education is vital for building a stronger community. It empowers young people to become active citizens, solve complex problems, and create positive change. Kiwanis has a proven track record of empowering young people to become positive forces in their communities. Join us to learn how you can contribute to this important work and help shape the future of our county. Kiwanis invites you to be part of this inspiring community event. Your participation will make a difference in the lives of young people.
Hey there, I'm Pat Stetzer.
And I'm Michael Duffy, inviting you to join us for The Score and more.
Each week we'll talk about high school sports in Carroll County. We'll share information about upcoming games, highlight coaches and athletes, and much more.
We'll even try to have a little fun along the way. Don't miss The Score and More podcast, presented by CM Sportsnet.
The Score and More Sports podcast is available online at carrollmediacenter.org and on a variety of podcast channels.
Brought to you by Farmers and Merchants Bank.
Back here at the Island Green, segment 2 of our second episode here today of Sports Talk at the Island Green. Avery Newport back here with you. We're really happy to have on Chris Gavin. He's the associate head coach at South Carroll High School right here in Carroll County. Chris, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
You guys got a really big game this weekend on the road against the Westminster Owls, one of the longest rivalries in the history of Carroll County. In fact, it is the longest standing rivalry in this county's history. Just tell me a little bit about how you prepare for such an important rivalry game like this.
Yeah, so I mean, you said it, right? The longest standing rivalry, it's always a big week. It's a big week for us, the alumni. A big week for me personally. Never beat Westminster as a player. Beat him a couple times as a coach, so got a little bit of a get back there. But it's always tough because Westminster always has a well-run program. They're a well-oiled machine up there, and we really try to do our best to match the size and speed that they bring to the table. I think we've done that pretty well over the past few years, and hopefully we can do our best and put our best foot forward this week.
Let's talk about your program at South Carroll, the Cavaliers. You guys were 3-7 last year, but that doesn't really tell the whole story about things. You won your last 3 regular season games, a 1-point win over Liberty, an 8-point win over Century, and another 8-point win over Francis Scott Key. That's a great way to end the year. And then you started off this year by beating Chesapeake 7-0 in the season opener. A lot of positives to take away from how you ended last season and how you started this season.
Yeah, so we really carried the momentum from last season into this season. Our last season we were very young. we probably, and we said this before, probably started the most sophomores on the team that in South Carroll history. Wow. I think we had 6 starting last year. Wow. But that's frankly a testament to the senior class we had the year before, who, was phenomenal and carried us through, a couple really winning years. So we were very young last year, and we took a lot of growing pains. The schedule didn't help, playing 5 3A schools to start off straight up. And as the smallest school in the county, that's always tough. It's always tough from a depth perspective, always tough from a skill level. And, trying to match that early, young quarterback as well is always a tough start. But we started to find our rhythm, started to find, our identity as a program and as a team. And frankly, and I talked with Pat about this at the season preview, but, returning over 70% of the production on offense and defense definitely helps coming back. Sure. In the following year. We carried that through to the start of the year. The score doesn't necessarily tell the tale of that first game. We were, in the red zone 4 times, only converted on 1 touchdown out of that. So, hopefully, we can continue to improve on that aspect of the game. But yeah, we're really looking forward to getting into county play and some of the rest of our games.
Well, you said it. Having so many returners, over 70%, is so important, especially for a young team like you guys were last year, because now you've got that extra year of experience. You've got starters who have game experience, who've played in the county before, and now that they're coming back, they understand the system a little bit more. They're a little more comfortable making those big plays and making those leadership plays as well, getting the guys to rally around them. That experience is really, really important, especially at the high school level when you're relying on those seniors and those juniors, those upperclassmen, to bring a lot of the mentality and the leadership to the guys in the locker room. To have so many returners, I think, is a really great way to set you guys up for success this year.
Yeah, and we're counting on them. We're also going to have, and we've had a pretty senior-heavy offensive line this year. That also helps. Offensive line, similar to the college programs, are a slow development position. It's very hard to put a sophomore in at offensive line at the varsity level and see immediate success. It's very rare versus something like a wide receiver or a linebacker, frankly. Just from a size, a mentality, strength perspective, it's a little tough. But having that senior-heavy offensive line, guys that have been there, done that, got the reps last year as well, definitely helps out. It also helps out getting back Manny Rodriguez, who was injured last year in the season opener against Chesapeake, and him coming back as a senior and a 2-way starter. It's just something that we lean on. Now we have a senior quarterback and so on. It's been really good to come from what we had and all those young bucks and the questions of, hey, how do we even down a punt? To building up to, hey, how can we execute at the highest level versus some of these tougher competition?
Yeah. You mentioned a little bit before we went on air that you guys also like to run the football a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
You've got your own history at South Carroll. You were a running back when you played here at high school. You had a 2,000-yard season as well. You were a player of the year, the all-time leading rusher in the history of the Cavalier program. So tell me a little bit about how you think the running game is important to your success on offense.
Yeah, so the running game is, frankly, I think the base of football, where the team that can establish the ground game wins the football game the majority of the time. It's a mentality. It's pretty much going to your opponent and saying, hey, we're bigger, stronger, and we're going to execute better than you, and we're going to take the ball and drive it right down the field. I know Coach Basler feels the same way at Westminster. They're very run-oriented, heavy gap scheme, type of runs that they roll through. I'm more of a zone scheme guy. That's a lot of what I ran, in high school as well. And not telling Westminster anything they already don't know. They know we given out here. Yeah, they know they know we love our zone runs. And so bringing that to the table really sets up everything else. Just like you guys were talking about before we came on here, if you're able to get them to start to commit to the box, commit to the run, that's when you can take your shots over the top, because you can make them pay for selling out against the running game.
Sure.
You just got to be able to execute that, though.
Yeah, and it does really start. We did mention it also when Skylar was on a couple minutes ago, that you got to get off to good starts. Good start is so important, especially at the high school level, because that's how you establish the run. If you get behind early, you might have to abandon the run and start to throw, and you have to change up your game plan a little bit. And, you know, at the high school level, that could really change some things up for you guys. But if you start well, you can establish the run early, which will then help you set up the passing game down the road. That's a great way to start off a football game.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things we do at South Carroll is we rep an opening script, which is about 10 to 12 plays, which we know are going to be our opening 10 to 12 plays, whether it's certain things that we want to see, whether it's, you know, like this past week versus Linganore, play 2 was the hook and ladder to try to get some, you know, early momentum on a trick play. Sure. We go out and we try to get a good early start with certain things that we have seen game plan wise or want to see how our opponent is going to react to immediately. And, you know, it's been very effective, you know, the past few weeks to have those guys be able to practice and know, okay, these are the first 10 to 12 plays that we are running for sure. Get them in their heads, and it helps give them that confidence that, hey, we rep this now 3 or 4 times, you know, up through Friday. Yeah. We know exactly how these players are going to react.
Yeah, so you talked a little bit about just your preparation process there. Let's apply that to this game this weekend on the road against the Owls of Westminster High School. How do you think the practices have been going so far, and how do you think you're going to be able to apply that game plan, that power running game, to this Westminster team this weekend?
Yeah, so Westminster, like we say, is probably always going to have a size advantage just from a school perspective, you know, having more kids and so on, just the way the math works out. So you got to make sure that, you know, you utilize that part to your advantage, right? A lot of times we say, hey, they might be bigger, but a lot of times that means we're faster. So, and, you know, works both ways, right? So if a team feels that, you know, they're bigger, then, you know, that's kind of how it works out in, you know, certain respects. But this week, right, it's really, you know, an emphasis on meeting the standards that we set as a program and not necessarily focusing, you know, on the week-to-week opponent. You know, if we can set our standards high and play to our standards, which, you know, we're trying to get back to the level of South Carroll football we had in the couple years prior to last year, you know, when we made the state finals run and then state quarterfinals the year after. If we can play to our standard, then we feel that we can compete in any football game with any team. We did that through the first half of the Linganore game last week. We did that through the Chesapeake game. So if we can put 4 quarters of that together and convert in the red zone, we'll
always important.
Yeah, we should have a very good chance to play Westminster tough this week.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about it in the win against Chesapeake to open up the season. That was just a 7-0 win for you guys. You leaned heavily on the defense, and they delivered time and time again. So there are definitely a lot of positives to take away from that win for sure on the road. And, of course, against a team like Linganore, which is always a power year in and year out, it's really tough to beat a team like that. But, again, I think there are positives to take away from a loss, and then you can apply them to the Owls team that you're going to play this week. Westminster's also 0-2 this year. Now, granted, they've played 2 very tough teams on the road at Franklin in their first game, and then last week at Frederick, both of which were losses. But either way, I think there are a lot of things that you guys can take away from that were positives from your first 2 games and apply them to a Westminster team that's, you know, you might have a you know, real strong chance of playing a tough competitive game with.
Yeah, and honestly, when you start to play some of these county teams, right, the record goes out the window. They really, you know, the coaches know each other. They know, you know, what each coach likes to do and what they're trying to do. You know, so a lot of times this is the, you know, 4th, 5th, 6th time you've seen very similar schemes on offense and defense. And it's a matter of, you know, who can stay one step ahead, right? Again, it also comes down to Jimmy's and Joe's sometimes. Sometimes, hey, my guy's faster, your guy's slower. That's how it works, you know, on a deep ball. But, yeah, Westminster had some very tough opponents, right? And Coach Basler talked about how they wanted to play those tough opponents, and I commend him, you know, for doing that. And, you know, Franklin and Frederick, both, state powers at this point. That says a lot about their program, that they played them in competitive, tough games all throughout. They got down early to Frederick. They didn't quit. They fought their way back into the football game. And this is going to be their home opener. They're going to be really fired up about that. This is their Carroll County opener. They're going to be really fired up about that. So, we are too, right? So we know that the emotion's going to be there. It always is for Westminster, South Carroll. Even back when I was playing, so it should be a very fun game.
Yeah. So tell me two things, one for the offensive side of your team and then one for the defensive side of your team, that you're looking forward to see in terms of progress, in terms of taking the next step. What do you want to see from your offense and your defense this week?
Yeah, so offensively, we want to limit our turnovers. Last week we had a rough week with some of the turnovers, and that inevitably, just from, I'm a numbers guy, being, an offensive guy, just from a statistical perspective, right? Giving your opponent more chances to score, more chances, within, frankly, one of our turnovers, Linganore ended up returning the interception down to the 4-yard line. We are not giving our defense a great shot at, keeping them out of the end zone, in those situations. So limiting turnovers and keeping possession of the football is really, really important. And then defensively, I would say our tackling, we definitely want to improve on that. This past week, we played a really tough running back. Coach Connor at Linganore said it himself a couple of times to the Frederick Post that, hey, this is a kid that's going to get Division I offers. And we saw some of that, trust me. He also gets a little bit of benefit. He doesn't have to play defense, unlike our running backs.
Yeah,
but
no two-way, right.
That's Linganore's program, and that's kind of what they get to enjoy, on that side. But, wrapping up and making sure that, again, football inevitably is a game of blocking and tackling at the very base level. And 90% of the time, the team that can block and tackle better is the one that wins the football game. So we focus on that offensively from the blocking perspective, and then defensively, we're repping tackling drills a ton. So, Coach McCullough I think we'll have those boys ready for Friday night on defense.
The last thing here before we finish up, you have mentioned, and I've mentioned too, that you played your high school ball here at South Carroll, where you're coaching right now, and you've had a tremendous success both as a coach and as a player there. You had 2,000 yards in a season one time when you were in school. You're the all-time leading rusher in the history of the program. How cool is it for you to return to your alma mater to be one of the leading coaches on the staff?
It's awesome. I was playing football at Georgetown and had a career-ending injury there. And at that point, they approached me at Georgetown and said, hey, you could help out the program, maybe hold a couple bags, maybe film some stuff. I was like, I feel like I could help out more elsewhere. And that's when I approached Coach Krause at that point and got into coaching at the high school level and jumped right in coaching running backs and defensive line. And as, moved through those years, giving back to the community that gave me so much, that gave me the opportunity to play college football, has been really, really enjoyable. And I've said, and I'll continue to say, I'm not going to leave South Carroll until one of my running backs breaks my record, so then I can move on.
Might be a while though, man. 2,000 yards. That's a heck of a season. Right?
Yeah, we'll see. It might be a while, but I think we have a couple guys, that. It just takes the right combination. But, the most important aspect, and something that I'll continue to remind our running backs, is the most important players to you, right, are that offensive line. And, my senior year when I had those numbers, I said it and I still say it, that it should have been a team record because, you can have the best running back, in the world, and you can see that with the Ravens right now with Derrick Henry. If you do not have an offensive line, you are not going to perform very well. So to give all the credit in the world to, my offensive line back then, and that's going to be the case moving forward with our running backs. If we're going to have any success, it's going to be because of the offensive line.
Yeah, absolutely. Football is a game that is won in the trenches with line play, and it really does start with the line. It sets up the running game. If you have good pass protection as well, it sets up time for the quarterback to throw, move through his reads, and set up the offense. Yeah, you really nailed it. It really does start with the offensive line, and we're seeing it at the pro level too, just like you mentioned, with the Ravens right now, how important that offensive line play is. Well, Chris, it's been a pleasure talking to you and getting to know your program a little bit more, and to have your program get a little spotlight here on Carroll Media Center. Wish you the best this weekend on the road. It'll be a tough game against Westminster, but sounds like you've got the guys in a great position, especially with how you ended last year and how you started this year, winning your season opener. A lot of positive things to build upon, and I hope you put it all together this weekend against Westminster. Should be a fun game to keep an eye on.
Yeah, appreciate you guys spotlighting our program. We appreciate any attention that we can give to our guys. Especially we have some guys that are looking to play college football, so any extra eyeballs on that definitely helps out. And if we execute to our potential, I think you guys are going to see a good game Friday night.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see it. Chris, thank you so much. You've been great. Good luck to your guys this weekend.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Chris Gavin, Associate Head Coach at South Carroll High School. We'll take another break and come right back. We'll talk some Maryland sports at large. We'll go over some Ravens, some Orioles, some Terps, and a little bit more. This is Sports Talk at the Island Green. We'll take a quick break and come right back.
Welcome to Island Green, Westminster. The Pub and Grill offers a variety of food in a family-friendly atmosphere. Live music, private suites, miniature golf. Learn more at islandgreenwestminster.com. Island Green, Westminster.
Hello, I'm Rachel Cash, the director of the Via Rhea Sunshine Foundation. We established the foundation to honor our beloved daughter, Mackenzie Ray, a class of 2026 Westminster High School student who tragically passed away in December 2022. Mackenzie was a kind, passionate individual who cared deeply about anti-bullying, volleyball, her family and friends, and she dreamed of becoming a military nurse. Our mission is to continue Mackenzie's legacy by advocating for anti-bullying initiatives, youth mental health awareness, compassion for animals, and by providing scholarships for students with similar interests. With 1 in 5 U.S. youth facing a mental health disorder each year, and suicide being the second leading cause of death among teens, our work is more crucial now than ever. We are dedicated to creating a safe and supportive environment for our youth through collaboration with parents, schools, legislators, and community leaders. We are honored to receive the Community Foundation of Carroll County's 2024 Philanthropist of the Year Rising Star Award, a testament to the positive impact we're making in our community. Visit BRAEofSunshineFoundation.com to find out how you can contribute. Together we can make a meaningful difference and bring a ray of sunshine to the youth in our community. Thank you for your support.
Skill, dedication, leadership. Just a few of the things it takes to be named CM Sportsnet's Athlete of the Week. Hi, I'm Pat Stetzer. Each week, CM Sportsnet recognizes an outstanding player for their contribution to their sport. Meet some of Carroll County student athletes and join us as we celebrate their performance, impact, and outstanding accomplishments.
CM Sportsnet Athlete of the Week is brought to you by Barnes Bollinger Insurance and by Raising Cane's.
Back here with Skylar Foltz for our final segment here today on Sports Talk at the Island Green, live from the Island Green in Westminster here on Carroll Media Center. Avery Newport back here with you again with Skylar. And we're going to talk some Ravens here to start things off here in the third segment. And boy, I wish we had a win to talk about, Skylar, but man, that game this past weekend against the Raiders was a tough one. The season opener at home for the Ravens at M&T Bank Stadium, and a tough loss, a 3-point loss at home to Vegas. 26-23 was the final score. Just a lot of mistakes, a lot of miscues here and there from the Ravens. There were points where the offense didn't look good, and then they made plays late in the second half. The defense looked great in the first half, and then the roof caved in the second half. The special teams even had some miscues and some errors too. A lot of things that the Ravens were really sloppy with this past weekend that they got to clean up moving forward.
It was a step back from the previous week. Yeah. We were sitting here talking last week. You kind of thought, all right, you take the positives from the game against the Chiefs, and you say, all right, defense plays really well. We can continue to grow and develop as an offense. I think they kind of took a step back. It's eating at them today. I stopped by Buffalo Wild Wings yesterday afternoon, and the place was empty. I think everyone kind of left as quick as possible.
That's not good.
But it was one of those games that I think stings a little bit, especially to the Raiders, who, I mean, when you look at this, when you look at the actual box score, it should have been a win for the Ravens. Sure. In every statistical category, I want to say the Raiders had like 30 or 40 yards rushing. Like, that's usually a recipe for success for the Ravens, but didn't turn out that way. And it just goes to show you that it's a lot of the fine details in football, and it's not always the box score that shows it.
Yeah, there's one thing. I was reading an article this morning from Bill Barnwell on ESPN, was going over every team that started 0-2 this season so far in the league, and each of their chances of making the postseason after losing their first 2 games, which statistically doesn't happen very much in the NFL. You know, there have only been a handful of teams over the last couple of years to make the playoffs after losing their first 2 games. And I saw a stat that really stood out to me from these first 2 losses for the Ravens. They've been decimated defensively on play actions in particular. Quarterbacks against the Ravens defense are 15 for 15 on play action passes with 112 yards through the air and 2 touchdowns. No incompletions, mind you, with play fakes, which is mind-boggling to think of through the first 2 games. From a coach's perspective, from your standpoint, since you are a head coach, since you know the passing game really well, what does the defense for the Ravens have to do to limit those big plays and to get better against play action fakes?
It starts with pressure on the quarterback, because a lot of times in play action pass, unless it's the 49ers, who do a great job of protecting Purdy with their play action game. McVay does the same thing. So does Ben Johnson with the Detroit Lions. But you got to find a way to make the quarterback uncomfortable in a play action situation, because a lot of times it's not the world's safest protection. And especially with the Ravens, who are a very aggressive defense, right? They do a really, really good job with upfront and their pressure packages and things like that. But sometimes you can leave your DBs out to dry. So I think it starts with getting home, or they're going to continue to see that. And that's not a great recipe for success.
No, it certainly isn't. And we saw some moments from the pass rush against the Raiders. They were able to get home and sack Gardner Minshew. Odafe Owe had 2.5 sacks in the loss this weekend. So we were able to see some glimpses here of that classic Ravens pass rush. But you said it, man. They left the defensive backs exposed over the top, and Devontae Adams beat them deep. They were beaten over the middle as well by Brock Bowers all afternoon. 9 catches for the rookie tight end. So there were some lapses in the defense. And we saw in the first half they were able to keep the Raiders out of the end zone. They were only limited to 2 field goals in the first half. But then you switched it over to the Ravens offense in the first half too, and they struggled to finish off drives with touchdowns.
It's just consistency, right? You get Derrick Henry for a couple of nice runs, and then you fall behind the sticks. It's about continuing to grow and develop the drives that they're getting. And that's the one thing that you would like to see the Ravens take the step forward, especially in Lamar's development as a quarterback. That he's doing some really, really good things. It's the consistency of doing those things. And it all goes back to the playoffs and things like that, where it kind of leaves you, hey, why aren't we more consistent? One game you're blowing it out 450 yards of offense. Next one you're barely getting 320. And that's frustrating as a coach, and I'm sure it's frustrating as a fan.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm a diehard Ravens guy. Full disclosor, I've been a huge Ravens fan my whole life.
Avery. Never would have guessed.
Not the Ravens helmet sitting in my office at the school, or no. But it is frustrating. It's frustrating to see it, because Lamar's a 2-time league MVP quarterback now. This team won 13 games last year, and by all metrics and accounts were the best team in the NFL a year ago. came a few plays away from winning the AFC last year and making the Super Bowl, and to see that they've started off so slow out of the gate this year is really frustrating. And I think there are some positives you can take away from the first 2 games, but there are a lot of question marks too, and it's not going to get easier for the Ravens considering their next game is on the road against the Dallas Cowboys.
They're not playing that well either. So,
right.
in all honesty, I think the Ravens are okay.
Yeah.
Taking from a coach's perspective, they're not panicking in that building right now. They're just looking at, again, you opened with the defending world champions, and you were real close to winning that game. And you come back, and at times you do really well against the Raiders, but you don't piece a 4-quarter football game together. So, again, they're not panicking in the building. They're really getting back after it, and it is a long season.
Yeah.
So, I don't think you need to hit the panic button just yet. But if we're talking again in 3 more weeks and they only got 1 win or something, different story. Now you got to figure out what's going on, where are the issues. But I think they just have to piece a 4-quarter full team game together, and through 2 games you just haven't seen that yet.
Right. Well, they'll have a chance on the road to do that against the Cowboys this weekend, who themselves were dominated at home by the Saints. How about New Orleans? They look like world beaters right now. I mean, 47 and then 44 points in their first 2 games.
As someone that grew up a Cowboys fan, again, as a college coach, I don't get to watch a lot of NFL games too much, right? Okay. I get a chance to watch Monday night games, occasional Thursday, and the Sunday night one. The world is ending in Dallas.
Yeah.
I think
Isn't it always? Right?
I think the Ravens are okay if they can play their football game. But the panic button is being pushed in Dallas right now. I'll tell you that for sure.
So now, did you grow up with the triplets, Troy Aikman?
Oh yeah,
you're
talking again. I was like 8 years old the last time the Cowboys won the Super Bowl, so I was in that prime where again they were on Fox every Sunday.
Nice.
So I grew up loving that. Troy Aikman, it's what I grew up loving and watching. And then you get into college, you get into coaching, and I don't get to watch as much as I'd like. But again, that's something you have to give up.
Yeah, and then your college days, you got to see the Tony Romo days, some Wade Phillips in there too. There were some good Cowboys teams back then.
Just a life of disappointment. Like Des Bryant made that catch. That's all you got to say.
You know, he was going to the ground. He put the ball out past the goal line. All right, we'll switch gears here, and we'll stay with football here. We'll go to the Maryland Terrapins, who won this past weekend on Saturday night on the road, a hostile environment against an ACC rival in the Virginia Cavaliers. Maryland won that game 27-13, coming off of a home loss in the Big Ten season opener against Michigan State. The Terps rebounded in a big way on the road against a traditional rival, and especially after getting down early. The Cavs were on top 13-7 in that game, and then Maryland scored 20 unanswered to win.
You look at that's what you want to do in your non-conference games, especially with the Big Ten slate that they have coming up very, very quickly. It was nice to see them pick it up in the second half. Again, like you said, they started down. But again, road test early in the year. Can you settle down? Can you make the plays we need to? Billy Edwards, their quarterback, ended up having a really, really good day, settled down in the second half, and they were able to execute. Again, one of those situations where you do look at the box score, and they tick the important ones. They started playing well. Third down, they were executing at the right times, and the defense started playing well.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think that's important for the Terps going forward, especially with the games that they have coming up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Big Ten slate certainly does not get any easier, considering that the Big Ten and the SEC are the 2 top dogs in college football right now. I mean, you've got the new Pac-12 teams coming into the fold this year in the Big Ten. Maryland's got one of them at home for homecoming in a couple of weeks. They're going to play USC. I mean, how crazy is that game going to be? A conference game between the Trojans and Terps. That's going to be something fun to watch. But, going back to this past weekend, I think, again, a lot of good things to see from the Terps, especially rebounding after such a heartbreaking loss at home to the Spartans last week before this one. They rebounded in a big way. They fought through an early deficit. A lot of positive signs, especially from the passing game, I think. Billy Edwards had 3 touchdowns through the air. Ty Felton looked fantastic, too, and they were able to get a road win against a rival. I was at the game last year that Maryland played against Virginia at home in College Park, and it was a similar situation where they got down early. They were down 2 scores in the first quarter, and they rebounded. They were able to put something together. They got some good drives going. They got a kickoff return for a touchdown and really turned the tide of that game. And you saw the same things playing out here this weekend. So a lot of positive signs from the Terps early on, and it's not going to get easier. As you mentioned, the Big Ten slate is a gauntlet, as it is always, and this year it's going to be tougher.
Coach Loxley has to be encouraged by the team because they responded really, really well. Again, from a close loss, that is a Big Ten game. Now you go into a non-conference game on the road, start off a little slow, but then you respond going forward. It's just about continuing that moving forward because it's not going to get any easier week by week, but you're hoping that you can learn and start faster. Again, similar to what I was talking about earlier, right? You want to be able to start a little bit faster and not be in those kind of situations.
Yeah, it's amazing how similar things are from the Division III level all the way up to Division I. Some things like just fixing those little things and making some little tweaks and changes here and there, it's applicable at every level of college football.
It's all football. It doesn't matter. You could throw on a Shepherd game. You could throw on anyone. It's all
Shepherd
football.
Rams, baby. Let's go.
It's all football, right? The only difference is the guys get bigger, they get faster, right? So every day the window is a little bit smaller, but still, it's still the same exact game.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hopefully the Terps can build upon that momentum coming up this week. We'll switch gears here and go to baseball now. We'll talk a little bit about the Orioles, who are starting a 3-game set tonight at home against the San Francisco Giants. And this is going to be a tough stretch here, I think, for the Orioles. We talked about it a little bit last week, but the pitching staff has been decimated with injuries, and the lineup has been cold as well. But you look at this Giants team coming into Camden Yards this weekend, and Skylar, this Giants team is not doing all that well either. They just got swept by the Padres this past weekend. So I think this is a favorable matchup for the O's to try and get back on track and maybe start getting back into the division race here with the Yankees.
They have to win the series, right? You keep going back. They're losing the series. They're going 1 win out of 3, and you look ahead. I mean, the Yankees are coming up real quick, so you need to get something moving forward to start trying to gain a little bit of momentum as the season's coming to a close here. Because no matter how it ends up, they still have a shot at winning the division. It's getting harder by day, but you're still looking at the playoffs coming down the line, and you want to start playing better and gain a little bit of confidence with October around the corner.
Exactly. I mean, they only got 4 series left in the regular season, and a couple of those are against playoff hopefuls in the American League. The Yankees, they got a series on the road in the Bronx to close out the regular season. They're going to play the Twins as well, who are right in the thick of the playoff chase too. And it's a tough situation for the O's to be in because they're a couple games behind the Yankees, but they've only got 2 games up on the Kansas City Royals, who are just right behind them in the wild card chase too. This AL playoff race is as tight as can be, and the Orioles don't have much breathing room. So the margin for error is much thinner now, and I think we're really going to start to see, hopefully, some more improvements in the lineup. The bats starting to wake up here towards the end of the regular season. Hopefully they can win this series and then play a competitive series against the Yankees, because they're going to have to. Again, there's just no breathing room in the American League.
You look ahead, right, and you're talking about, can they get 4 of the next 6, right? Start gaining a little bit more going here towards the end. That's really the key, and try to win them the tough way, right? Not getting into those ones where you get down 1-6 real quick, right? Like, can you win those tough ones and play some close-knit baseball games and really start slugging them out in the end? Maybe the bats start coming alive, right? Maybe you get a couple of easy ones, but you got to start winning the small ball kind of games here towards the end of the year.
Right, and it's really important, too, to close out games. You know, we've talked about it in a football context, but it's just as true in baseball. We watched a game a couple nights ago when the Orioles were on the road in Detroit against the Tigers. They had a 4-0 lead going into the 9th inning, a really quality start, 7 strong innings from Corbin Burns, and right away relief pitching comes in and gives up 2 runs to start the 9th inning, and all of a sudden you start to breathe a little heavier now. You know, like these games, when you've got a lead going into the later innings of the game, you just got to close them out, and you can't give up those late runs. And playoff teams don't make those kinds of mistakes. And I think we've really got to see some improvement from the bullpen moving forward if we're going to have confidence in the Orioles going into the playoffs.
You kind of hit it there when you said playoff teams and what they do, right? The ones that make a push in the playoffs don't rely on the big play. They rely on consistent play over and over. And right now, that's the O's problem. They're getting 1 out of 3. There's just not that consistency of, well, maybe the bats come alive one night out of the 3, but you got to win the close-knit ones, especially to build confidence going into the playoffs.
Exactly. Yep. Well, hopefully we see some steady improvement from the Orioles. Hope the bats come alive soon. And the pitching, again, has had its moments, and the relief pitching has kind of taken a step back a little bit the last couple of weeks. But They have 4 series left to right the ship before the playoffs. They're going to be in the playoffs regardless. We know that for sure. So hopefully they can fix those little mistakes over the next couple of weeks, put everything together for a playoff run, whether they win the division or they start off as a wild card team. We saw last year the Arizona Diamondbacks made the World Series as the 6th seed in the National League. Anything can happen in the baseball playoffs. It's so wide open. And the Orioles, just like any other team, could catch fire at the right time.
And that's the goal, right? Start playing better so you can catch fire. And again, you can walk it all the way up to the last 2 series, right? And just at some point in the next month, they have to turn the knob and really start cranking it up.
Yep. Yeah, so hopefully they can make the turn and start to gear up towards the playoffs in a positive fashion. But I think that'll cover most of the sports here in the Maryland scene for us this week. We'll give you a couple more events coming up here at the Island Green in Westminster if you want to come by. On Thursday, September 19th, we've got live music here at 6 p.m. Justin Berdiguez. I mispronounced it last week. I practiced it. Justin, I'm so sorry. I practiced it coming into the show. Justin Berdiguez is going to be here live on September 19th, this Thursday at 6 p.m. Then Friday, September 20th, another live act is going to come right here at the Island Green. Late Night Record Shop here at 7 p.m. On Saturday, September 21st, another live act coming in. Mark Bray and the Steel Soul Cowboys at 6 p.m. And then looking forward to next weekend, Sunday, September 29th, is the Bluegrass Festival right here in Westminster. Salem Bottom Boys, Duffy and Rowe, 100 Proof, Hayden Shaw, and This Side of Pleasant. All 4 of these acts are going to be here at the Island Green on Sunday, September 29th, starting at 12 noon. So lots of exciting things coming up here at the Island Green. That's going to wrap it up today for us, guys, this second episode of Sports Talk at the Island Green. Thanks so much to our hosts here at the Island Green. They've been great. Lots of cool things coming up on the schedule here. Skylar, you've been great once again. Thank you so much for coming on, talking some McDaniel with me, previewing some Ravens, some Orioles, Terps. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully we can see another win this weekend against William Patterson.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Avery. And again, same thing. Like you were looking out to coming out to Island Green. We're home again this Saturday at 1 o'clock. Hope to see you guys on the Hill.
It's going to be a great game against the Pioneers. Check out McDaniel football. This guy's doing good things with this program, so keep an eye on the McDaniel Green Terror. So we're going to wrap up here at the Island Green. My name is Avery Newport. Thank you so much for watching episode 2 of Sports Talk here at the Island Green on Carroll Media Center. We'll see you back here next week at the same time, same place, 6 p.m. live from the Island Green. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your Monday.